Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and something a little bit different. We're going to dive straight into a race now. We're in the GT Hopper, we're in the BMW M8, which is what I'm going to be driving around Daytona, and we're just going to dive straight in. I want to talk about a couple of things today. First of all, the importance of driving a setup that you're comfortable with as we dispatch the Z4 and just dip into first on the first couple of corners. Really, it's all a bit hectic at the start of these lobbies. The importance of driving a setup that you're comfortable with, and also following from that, the importance of being able to make your own setups, because I think they kind of fall hand in hand, and there's an adaptability aspect as well. So I want to cover off a few of those elements. First of all, if you haven't seen my track guide with Davey Skills to this video, then pause this one. I'll put a link up above and also in the description below. Go and have a quick look at that video. It's a sort of 5-10 minute track guide on Sonoma, Infineon as it's known as well. And in a Lotus GT1 sort of elite factory car, which has got loads of grips, similar to this BMW. So if you haven't seen that, pause this, go away, go watch that one, come back and then unpause it right about now. So let me know in the comments actually if that video was useful, because I certainly reflect back on that, because Dave is an absolute mastermind around Sonoma. So really study that lap and what he sort of gets from the car there. Anyway, let's dive into what I wanted to talk about. First of all, the importance of driving a setup that you're comfortable in. The car that I'm in at the minute, I'm spending a lot of time in at the minute. Okay, so it's the M8. I'm driving it around Daytona for the Tora 24-hour race. It's a very, very different car for that circuit, though. Obviously, for that circuit we're running low drag, virtually no downforce. It's set up for those long gears, the straight line speed. You couldn't really get much further away from Sonoma, which, as you can see, is all sort of second, third gear corners, very tight, twisty. You need very good balance and stability in the car to make it quick round here, because you need to carry a lot of speed through the corners, as well as some shorter gearing for coming out of this sort of double apex hairpin here, which is actually really tricky, because there's not a lot of downforce on the back of this car, so it's quite difficult to sort of keep the stability through this section. As you can see, we're just in a normal sort of GT hopper, and actually a lot of the time being comfortable in a setup in these hoppers isn't massively necessary. But we've definitely got some competition in Ben Smith on this race, who's in a Porsche. He's 1.5 seconds behind at the minute, and he's definitely going to be pushing us for the rest of this race, I suspect. And what I'm finding with this car, which is it's actually Craviator's setup that I'm driving at the minute, my teammate for Daytona. You'd think we're on the same team, we like the same cars, but that we'd have sort of similar driving styles and be able to set the car up to suit both of us. But this is one I've just downloaded from his storefront at the minute, and it's incredibly oversteery. I'm finding it extremely difficult to handle, especially around the faster corners, but also coming out of slower ones like that. I just get a snap of oversteer, and then the car bogs down as we're using traction control. So I need to, if I'm going to consistently win these races in these lobbies, I need to be able to get consistent with this setup, or I need to be able to make my own, and that's what I want to talk about. So what am I finding difficult is oversteer. So what would I change? I'd make the car more stable, I'd make the car a sort of slightly less responsive, so it doesn't turn in quite as quickly, and I like that element in a car. I know that Craviator loves an oversteery car, and that's his driving style, and it works for him, but it doesn't work for me. So what are the things that I can do in this lobby right now in this race to sort of compensate for my lack of confidence and skill with this setup? Really, it doesn't suit my driving style, so how can I adapt here? So the first thing is being gentle, I think I'll call it, with the car. Usually in GT you plant the throttle and you adjust using the steering, which is great, because a lot of these cars have fat rear tyres. As we get another kick of oversteer through there, fat rear tyres, you could just rely on the fact that even with the aero toned down a bit on the rear. They still make a heck of a lot of aero. So there is grip there, and you need that lack of aero on the back to make the car turn in the first place. It's just the way the game is and how to drive. But in this immediate race, I can tone down that immediate throttle, so I can be a little bit more gentle on the throttle. I can take a couple of stabs at the throttle, so the car almost sort of feels a bit more ready to race for me, ready to grip coming out of a corner. So I'll sort of try it around this one, take a couple of stabs at the throttle, then I'm sort of half throttle, and then I'm back on the power. So there's a few things that you can adjust on the throttle, and through here as well. It's again, you see me dipping down to half throttle, where as if I was confident in this setup, I'd be full throttle all the way through that. So there are a few things to do on the throttle. Regarding the steering, you can definitely be more gentle, and that kind of seems obvious as we fly through some tyres where someone's hit the barrier going into the pits on the left hand side there, which is a little bit unfortunate, especially if you're racing. I've definitely been caught up in some traffic there previously where I've ended up almost in that wall or in the wall somewhere else because of it. Now there are definitely things you can do with the steering to help compensate as well. If you know you're in an oversteery setup and you don't mind driving normal steering, as we smash the curb, which really isn't the way around that first section corner. We're going to lose a lot. We lose sort of, over half a second to Ben in the first section, which isn't great. Although we are starting to eke out a bit of a lead on the third and fourth place driver, up to sort of 12 and 15 seconds. So it shows you how much time there is in sort of getting to know the track and where those track guides and things are really important. So there are things to do in the steering. If you don't mind driving a normal steering car, I know a lot of people are going to hate me for saying this, and it is a bit of a debate on Forza, especially since time began. But on Forza 7, is it really necessary? Is it faster? So I'm driving sim steering at the minute, and I don't mind sim steering. It's not my favourite game to race sim steering on. I actually prefer normal, and I used normal steering up until sort of the Forza Racing Championship started a couple of years ago. And it's actually my teammate Chemical who enlightened me, showed me the light, and said, "Matt, actually you should try sim steering." And from them, we sort of never looked back really. It's I think it enables you to drive slightly worse laps, so technically worse laps, but still sort of get the same time. Because if you make a mistake using normal steering, you will be punished a little bit further, a little bit harder really. So having said that, if you can cope with sim steering, as we drive straight off the track in the first corner, it's so difficult to control the oversteering in this car. If you can handle the oversteering, you're confident in your ability to maintain a skid or correct the car when you're in a little bit of trouble as our lead is reducing rapidly, then stick to sim steering. If not, then use normal steering and drive as smoothly as you can. Like I said, you're going to get punished a little bit more for some mistakes, but hopefully driving smoothly you won't actually make those mistakes. So that's the sort of theory behind that madness really. I find driving normal steering easier. I find it difficult switching between normal and sim, because that's just it's just a completely different kettle of fish. It's a different driving style. You push the car in different ways. As we have a huge oversteer moment and our lead has dropped below a second, down to 0.7, 0.6 probably 0.5 by the time we get to the end of the lap for the first time. Ben's really starting to reel us in, as obviously I'm struggling to adapt to this setup through that faster section. It's so loose, and as you start to sort of gain a bit of confidence, you think you're starting to get on top of things, you start to push the car more and more. Actually what happens is you should be doing the complete opposite. You're gaining confidence, so you should just let the car drive itself. Don't really push, just glide around the circuit is kind of what we're aiming for, as actually that first corner was a good example of that. So yeah, drive normal if you think that's the way you're going to go, but I'd advise sort of sticking, if you're going to stick in this car, then stick with a sort of either sim or normal. So we come up to laps and cars after only 6 completed laps, but on lap 7 as well, as we good first sector actually, quarter of a second up on our fastest lap time, but Ben's sticking with us, 0.5 of a second behind. And actually these cars are a little bit of a distraction. and we can see, although we don't actually have to overtake them as they're ghosted, we see if that affects things between me and Ben, and who sort of copes with the distraction of the traffic, as we're using that half throttle sort of method coming out that slower corner a little bit more. So the other thing I wanted to touch on in this video is at the sort of halfway point of the race, is that was much cleaner through the S's, not so much oversteering. We're starting to eke out that lap time again, as we've got two ghosted cars here going into the end of the lap. Cool, it was quite difficult to concentrate through there, and into the last corner, which I am yet to decide whether first or second is quicker, but you know, I think it's second, but maybe we'll do a bit of experimentation with that later on in the race. Yeah, the second thing I wanted to touch on is the ability to fine-tune or to tune yourself. I think it's such a crucial skill, and one that I've been trying to sort of share with you guys through various tuning guides. In fact, actually, if you haven't watched them and you're keen to sort of find out a bit more about how I tune, then there's a whole series that I did. Go into my playlist called Project Vulcan. It takes you through sort of the alignment, springs, damping, anti-roll bars, differential, all of that good stuff, and how it affects the car. And that's specifically for well, it's a hypercar. It's in the Aston Martin Vulcan, and obviously things will be different for a sort of front-wheel drive car. But you know, certainly if you like racing GT or in those hypercars, then that's a good sort of start to your own tuning. I know a load of people who have watched that series and have messaged me or commented on the video saying, actually, you know, you've changed the way I approach tuning for the better. I've learnt, you know, tips and tricks, and if you can gain sort of a tenth or 2 tenths from some of those tips or tricks, then that's absolutely useful. And you know, that's why I'm doing it, really, is to share that content with as many people. Let's go into the pits then. About 0.6 of a second ahead of Ben. Sonoma notorious for sort of pit lane problems, I guess, and loading problems. So let's see if it happens again. You know, although we're in a different pit box, I've got a feeling it's probably going to happen now that I've jinxed it. And really, the skill is in knowing how you drive yourself, knowing what sort of setup you'd like to have. So, like I mentioned earlier in the video, I prefer having a slightly understeery setup. I struggle when it comes to pushing the limit of a car if it's an oversteer bias setup. And that's just me inherently, as obviously I jinxed myself, and Ben kindly sort of lets us through because the pit lane glitch there, so thanks very much for that. Actually get a bit distracted and run wide going into this corner. I know in myself that I like a slightly understeery car, so if I'm getting a setup unlocked from someone, maybe Craviator, you know, I know he likes an oversteery car, I know there's certain things that I need to do to make that car drivable for me, whether it's to stiffen the front end, you know, soften the rear, put the front dampers up, you know, maybe less accel differential or more decel, just to increase that stability. You know, there are a few things that I do straight away, even before I've driven the car, and I know that goes against sort of some of the things that I maybe preach, and that kind of says do what I say, not what I do. But you know, I'd urge you to try the car, but unless it's someone you know has a particular driving style, or you've received setups from them before, as we're still struggling through the S, it's so twitchy through there, especially with sim steering. It's really difficult actually. This one I'm sort of starting to get the hang of a little bit more. I'm slightly smoother on my input going into that corner. It's not quite as a sharp turning as I was at the beginning, where if I was in a slightly different tune I probably would take a different line through there, but seems to be working. You know, we're still in the lead, 0.8 seconds ahead now of Ben. It's sort of been stable, but we've eked out some time since the pit stop. We've only got 3 laps left, so, and we're a good sort of 23-25 seconds ahead of third and fourth. So we have been pushing on. We have been driving at a pretty hot pace. We've still got, you know, 16 people in the lobby, so it's not like it's a sort of uncompetitive one really. The pit stop's in there as well, and I would imagine, as I think Ben's made a mistake to drop sort of outside of a second again, outside of that DRS zone, even if there isn't DRS in game. You know, it's been up to us to run this pace, and although we have made some mistakes, we've definitely sort of started to conquer this setup using that half throttle sort of modulation throughout the race. But yeah, as I was saying, if you know it's someone who regularly gives you setups and drives in a certain way, you know that you start to learn tips and tricks to implement on that setup as soon as you get it. So if I'm going to get one from Croviator, then I know I need to make it slightly more understeering. But you know, that's a whole other story. What do you do to make it more understeering? Again, sort of, I'll put a link up to the guides I've done previously to how driving styles affect how you tune the car. But you need to know what things make it more comfortable for you to drive, and I'd urge you just to mess around with any car. It doesn't matter. And just in test drive, as someone else actually pits really on lap 10, as we're coming up to sort of lap another car across the start finish line, first section there, as we're in the 29s, which is good sort of pace, not ideal, definitely struggling a little bit, but sort of, it's not unhealthy pace, put it that way. Urge you just to muck around with the car in test drive and just change one thing at a time, and make it extreme, so you get to know what sort of things change the car, and what nuances you can work on to help your driving style. For example, try 1 and 40 roll bars, and then try 40 and 1 roll bars, and see how the car reacts, and do that with the springs, and then maybe do the opposite. So you've got 1 and 40 roll bars, but then the front spring is way stiff and the rear spring's way soft, and see how the car reacts, and then invert that. So you start to build up a picture of what starts to affect the car, as long as you change sort of one thing at a time. Don't go changing, oh, you know, this car's too oversteer, I'm going to change this and that, and oh yeah, I fixed it, I know how to tune, because you know, you might have fluked that. Yeah, there'll be several things that work together. I'd urge you to play around and just change one thing at a time, as we sort of overtake a Lamborghini or lap a Lamborghini. So that would be my main message really. Find a driving style that works for you. Learn how to tune for that driving style, and that is going to be a video that I'm going to focus on further. Is actually my driving style. How do I tune someone else's driving style? How do you tune for that? And we'll do a bit of a tutorial on that at some point. And then find out what tweaks on setups work for you, and change one thing at a time. They'd be my main sort of messages. Guys, we're on the final lap here. I realise it's been quite a long video. These GT hoppers, the endurance hoppers, someone's really struggling to conquer their setup, in another M8 as well, with an oversteering moment out of there. Appreciate it's a long video, but thanks for sort of sticking around if you've got to this point. Do consider subscribing to the channel. Going to be more and more regular updates. We've got a themed month coming up in February, which is going to be really cool, which I think a lot of you are going to be interested in. I'll put a bit of a sneak preview in the next video as well. And you know, subscribe to the channel, give the video a like if you like this sort of content. Then it's, you know, I like doing it. And the more and more people see it, then the more and more happy I'm going to be from that. So big moment again, as we have to get super off the throttle. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you hit that bell icon next to the subscribe button there, you can personalise or add all of the notifications from my channel. So when I post a new video, or I premiere a video, or I'm going to start doing some live streams coming up with the Daytona 24 hours, then you know, you'll get an update, you'll get a notification, and all of that is absolutely appreciated. So guys, appreciate long video. See you next time.